So today on Company Culture, we're going to be talking about what your company is doing to advance culture within your company. So I got to give you a couple of different phone calls that I've had this week. The first one a couple of days ago was with Gary Ridge, who is the CEO of WD-40. I told him I wanted to do a Zoom interview for the association. Hopefully you're a member of Global Company Culture Association. We do this thing called Real Talk. We've interviewed some really cool people. We've got Catherine Monson coming up from Fast Signs. And so I was going to do it Zoom because he's in San Diego. He talked for 4 minutes, so compelling about culture. I said, we got to fly out to San Diego. I want to come see what's going on at WD-40. And then I had a very, very different phone call with someone who's at an organization and is struggling with the culture. They're kind of paying a little attention to it, but they're treating it as one of the things they may need to focus on. And I had a very frank conversation about you're never going to get there the way that you're going to do it. So today we're going to talk about just one more tool that your company can use to really effectively impact the culture. And it's born out of some experience of the great Elise Martin. Drum roll. That was so underrated for what my intro was. So can we talk about the company?
Company Culture Club.
Yes, but can we talk about where your experience came from with that?
Companies.
Okay. All right. So you were at a company,
right?
And you were the president of the Culture Club.
Yes.
So first of all, and we're really talking in context because it was an idea that we love so much. We've incorporated it into the Global Company Culture Association. Absolutely. When companies come and join, we're putting together now a kind of a kit that they can use and a book. This is your first book that's going to be coming out.
That's right.
And it's really about how do you create a culture club within your company, right?
I think I like it if we start by defining culture. So many people have such a hard time before we jump into why having a culture club is important to that culture.
So maybe I should just read a little bit from your book.
Sure.
May I? Okay. Put very plainly, company culture is the atmosphere that you create for your employees to work in and play in and for outsiders to see. The best company cultures are created intentionally. Mm-hmm. Now, we've had some discussion. I think you wrote this. I don't think these are my words. So, and people are tired of hearing me define company culture. So let's do it in Elise's voice. Today's work environment, no, I'm not going to read it as Elise, is full of people who no longer want to just go to a job where they need to stay 10 years and hope to receive an eventual promotion, right? Employers no longer care if the person they're hiring has a track record of staying at the same company for a minimum of 2 years. They care if the person they're hiring can do the job and if they will be a good fit for the company's culture. Mm-hmm. And this has to be your words. A badass is a badass. And make no mistake, companies will pay more to steal your top talent.
True.
So,
in the key ring of employee retention, company culture is your only key. It's the only key that matters. You want to retain employees, right? You could keep paying them, but at some point you're not going to have enough money, right, to keep raising their salaries every time someone tries to steal them. But if they're happy, right? If they feel like they're in this tribe and they feel like these people they work with are their family, they're gonna want to stay there, even if somebody else offered them more money. It's something, and we need to pay our bills, but it's not everything when it comes to where I spend 80% of my time.
Absolutely. So Gary Ridge, who we're going to go out to San Diego to interview, and by the way, the fact that it's in San Diego is also quite appealing, right? But they have like a crazy number, like a 96, 98% employee approval rating. And not just approval. They're not like, yeah, I like working here. They're like crazy about it. And the other thing that, I always say is one of the indicators you got a great company culture if you're not having to do recruiting because the people who work there are recruiting for you. So you've worked at some companies where people are kind of lined up around the door to go to work there.
Honestly, yes. But why? It's because of the culture.
They feel like people, and I'm thinking about one company in particular, that people feel like going to work there is going to advance my career. It's going to level me up. It's going to teach me some skills. I mean, what do you think the motivation was why y'all had to turn people away at that company?
I mean, we didn't have enough space. I mean, as it was, we were taking on 30 interns in the summer. And these interns weren't even paid.
Unpaid interns.
But they were so excited. Every department had so many applications. We had to get a whole system around hiring or not hiring. But don't forget that our culture didn't just attract them for the sake of the culture. When other companies look in at us and they see that great culture, once the interns graduate, saying that they were an intern there is good for them in their next job because they've already worked in a great culture, which means we wouldn't have brought them on if they were toxic.
So it says something really profound about them as well.
For them, it's like a stamp of honor on their badge working for a great culture. So there you go. That's how we got free interns, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so I would venture to say that for a lot of people, if they looked at their resume, there's some places on there that and who even does resumes anymore? I guess they're still a thing.
Still a thing, yeah.
If you look at your resume, what companies on your resume were you proud to work for, and what are you I kind of had to put it down for job experience, right? So the way people feel about the company really says a lot about culture. In fact, I was telling the person on the phone today, I said, listen, this is my definition of company culture, roughly,
right.
But it is the beliefs, the attitudes, and the feelings that the collective, so individuals have them, but we take it aggregate as a whole, that the collective team members, right, have about the company,
right, and
the actions they produce. I mean, it just dawned on me recently thinking about that this particular company is trying to address their culture. They were trying to address the actions. Okay. And they were doing it, by the way, in, probably the not most helpful way of saying, we need to be more collaborative. Elise, go be more collaborative. Or like people do sometimes with, I want people to act like owners. I want you to start acting like an owner. Okay. So you're starting at the back end of the thing, because by the time you get to the way people are behaving, it's based on thoughts, feelings, and attitudes they have about the company. And if you don't change that, you're never going to change the behaviors, right? You won't change the actions, because actions are a result. They're not a source. They're an outcome, not a initiator, right?
Right. So you want to initiate it. So culture starts always at the top. Always at the top. You start from the top, and then you gather your managers, right? And you stick them in a room, and you have them ask themselves one question. I mean, how can we make work fun and engaging for them, everyone? The managers have their own groups, right? And that's where the culture club comes in. A lot of companies don't have a budget to hire a full-time culture person. So instead of doing that, why don't you divide up the tasks of a culture person into a body of people?
I think it's better that way anyway. Because now it's a group of people that
more diversity.
That are really focusing, paying attention. You get a wide collection.
It's not just that. I think, and then you ask yourself, the question always comes up of who do you put in there first? A lot of people don't want the extra work. I don't want the extra work. I've already got enough on my plate. Why should I bother with the culture? Well,
okay, so you're getting into what I want to get into, which is the whole culture club creation. So it makes a big difference. You got to decide who's going to be in there,
right? So,
can we back up?
Yeah.
You backed me up earlier. I want to back you up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what a culture club is, and then I want to get into the logistics of how do you go about setting one up.
It's simple. It's a body of people, collective of people from each department in your company that are there to gather the information that you as a CEO or a leader don't have time to go talk to every single person. Okay, I won't blame you for that. But these people are in the trenches, right?
So they're solely focused on getting the culture right, planning things that help with the culture, figuring out where the tough points are. I mean, what's their charter? What's their agenda?
Their agenda to make the culture better.
Okay.
Always making it better.
No matter how good it is, if it's good, let's make it great. If it's great, let's make it outstanding.
They do more than just plan the social events and the chili cookout. Plan new events. They go into the trenches and ask their fellow coworkers.
Did y'all actually ever have a chili cookout?
Yes.
Okay. Did you win?
No.
Okay.
No.
I love it. All right. So that's their function.
Right.
So then how do you go about putting one together, and how many people's ideal? How do you source them?
It depends on how many people you have in your company. So let's say you have 150 people. That's it's a good size. And you've got accounting, you've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got admin, right? That's 4. Then you've got the executive level, right? The managers and what other departments? You've got IT, that's 6.
Sure.
So let's say you got 6 departments, you're going to have 6 people.
Okay, right? So you want to draw from every department so that you can be sure that you're getting the voice of everybody. Okay.
Because if you don't, the club becomes a silo, and you don't want that. We want to use this club to break down silos while we're working on the culture.
Not to mention that the side benefit is now they're able to go back to their department and say, hey, here's what we discussed, here's what we talked about. So you don't have to make sure to touch that group because you've got somebody else that's actually from the group.
Right, an insider.
Versus somebody else coming in and going, like you were the president. If you go in and say, hey, we made a decision, we're going to do this, it's different than if the person who's actually in their department comes back and makes it happen.
Exactly.
Smart.
Exactly.
Love it.
So then choosing the people is always problematic the first round because the executive team, your managerial team, the CEO, they need to decide who they're going to plop in there.
Right.
And I don't want you all to just consider your favorite people. I want you to consider their favorite people, the ones that are popular in the company, the ones that have the most influence, the ones people look up to.
See, I think you're onto something because I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that companies make. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show before, but who decides who gets promoted, managers or fellow employees?
Managers.
Right. They're like, oh, we like Elise. She's great. Let's put her in a position, right? Or we won't pick you. We really like Tom, right? So does that mean necessarily that everybody else in the company likes Tom if the managers like Tom?
No.
In fact, there may be a pretty good chance that they don't like Tom.
Which will cause him to be a bad manager even if he was a good manager.
It just perpetuates that, right? I think companies would are a lot better served if they would listen to the people and what their opinion is out there, in the trenches. How do we feel about Tom? How do we feel about this person?
With some, yes, I get your point.
You don't want to be a popularity contest.
I don't want to be. I don't think that we're at a point where everyone knows who should be in the managerial position. You should always consider, qualifications, time spent at the company, experience, if they have the capacity to lead. A lot of people don't. A lot of people can't become leaders or managers. They're just not made for it.
All right, so let's get back to the club though. So you let the people in the department pick who they like to be on the club? I mean, y'all would have them decide?
No, well, you can, but what we did was the C-suite sat down and decided who was going to be in the first club. So they picked out
the first club.
Yeah, they picked out one from each department, right?
Right.
One from marketing, one from here, one from there, and a lot of them were just like really popular. Some of them were just really hardworking. Some of them were just really peppy. So some of them were chosen because they were so representative of the culture. So they were perfect to put in there. They would get what we wanted and they would help, push it out.
Okay, so you get the group together and it's now day one, meeting one. What happens?
We all get together and we divvy up the chores, So we need a secretary and we need a treasurer and we need a someone to help with trade and but we divide it up based on their qualifications. So the person from accounting is probably going to be the treasurer, right? And the admin is probably going to be the secretary, taking the notes, making sure to schedule our meetings and all that.
So stereotypical.
It's just smart. But sometimes it happens the other way. Sometimes the accounting person could be the secretary because they want to do something different with this extra time.
Sure.
But we all agree on dividing up the chores. And then we move forward on finding out. The second step was finding out what everyone wanted. Like, we know we do this and we do that and we have this, high five thing and it's great. People seem like they like it, but have we ever gone around and like asked everyone if they want something different?
Right.
And through the course of time, we everyone served a year, and then after the first year, we implemented a lot of things. One was it on top of the chili cookout? We did like a bake out, which was in office where, because in some states baking is a very popular thing for women. So the office was predominantly female. So these women love to bake. They went all out. The whole office looked like plum fairyland, and people are just happy to bring in their cakes to like show off how intricate and they would put a lot of work into it, so they enjoyed that.
So y'all also did some pretty significant policy changes.
Yes,
like you pushed forward
not the first
Friday because you probably had to gain
you have to show. The first year I wouldn't expect a lot of big changes because you have to show the proof of concept.
Right.
So even though the C-suite and the executive level put you together, doesn't mean that they're sure it's going to work. They're hoping that this will bring the change they need, but it's not necessarily true. And as is always the case with leaders in C-suite, we're a little skeptical. Okay, we're taking from my badass, guy's time for him to be on this body. Is it really making any difference?
Sure.
When they start to see that people are really having more fun and everybody's more engaged and retention is, you're going to see something in the first year. Maybe not a lot, but you're going to see something.
Right.
The second year, the members are not put in there. They're nominated by the people in the club.
Okay, love it.
So let's say John from
and you only serve 1 year?
1 year,
okay.
Because it's like political office. If you sit there too long, you either get stale, you get bored, you get tired, you stop coming up with...
I disagree. This is not an issue. We have politicians that have been in Washington for 48 years, and they're still bringing great decision making and energy. I'm joking, of course.
I'm not saying...
I'm in 100% agreement with you that it can get stale and you get in that job.
It's good to change out the blood.
Get some new ideas, get some new things going.
Because there's always younger generations coming into the company. So you can't just keep... eventually what you'll end up with is a panel that doesn't represent the culture. You have to keep switching it out. Bring in some new hires. Bring in some people who see the culture from the outside because they just came in, right? They haven't been in there forever. It's good to switch out. I'm not saying we didn't have people that served multiple years. I myself served 2.5 years. But that was because I really enjoyed it and everyone wanted to keep me.
President.
I was voted president. I didn't want to be president.
You were voted president, right?
The first one. They never had one before.
Weren't you also Employee of the Year 1 year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have to show that video sometime. So, okay. So you got the group is now running.
Yep.
And how much access do they have to? Because I want to get into the logistics of it. How much access do they have to the C-suite? Like if the president of the Culture Club goes and says, "Hey, owner, president, CEO, we talked about XYZ."
Exactly.
Do they have a pretty good voice in that?
Absolutely. So the body gets together and they agree on something. So 1 year we talked about adding something nice for everyone. We had great vacation. We had we didn't have a vacation policy, so it was unlimited. It was great. But a lot of people found it impossible to take time off because some of those jobs are day to day, can't be handed to someone else. They're sensitive, they're confidential, whatever the case, right? So those people were groaning over the holidays that they couldn't take because they had to come in the day before Thanksgiving in order to do the payroll or something, So we had an idea for the summer that we would do flex Fridays. Now we talked about Fridays off so people could spend time with their children. We had a lot of families working, mothers, dads, so they could spend time with their children in the summer. You have to remember, parents still have to go to work in the summer while the kids are off, right? And they're sitting at home getting up trouble or having fun or whatever the case. But you want to be with them in the summer. That's your chance to spend time with them. So we talked about Fridays off, but we got a hard no, which made sense. Shutting down the office every Friday in the summer sounds like it would make a big impact on productivity, especially when you have deadlines.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of the 4-hour work week. And, we had our 4-day work week. And we talked about last time about the 5-hour work day.
Yes.
that company's trying over in Germany. But yeah, so it was a big thing, and it was met with resistance, because typically management's going to say things like, nobody's going to be around, what's going to happen, we can't get work done.
I think I would advise any company culture club, a body in this case, that you don't want to go too far too fast. You want to test the product, see how it responds, see what happens, prove to the C-suite that it's not having effect on work, right? People are still getting their jobs done. Then you can push a little more. It's all about inch at a time, right? We are dealing with 3 generations in the workplace right now, which makes it a little difficult, because you've got the boomers that are used to doing things a certain way, and you've got the millennials now that want to do something
that are, I think, 50% of the workplace, and by I don't know what it is, next few years are going to be like 75%.
Yeah, and the next generation is going to change things again. So
so you've got to take it, and I know how you approached it, which I thought was brilliant. Was that you said, hey, let's try. Let's do a trial basis. We'll do this trial.
So we did get even the Flex Fridays was given a hard no at first.
Right.
But then we had the ability, which is always so important when you're representing culture and you get a no from the C-suite, ask why. We asked why. Why can't we just try Flex Fridays? They said because accounting, they hardly get any days off now, and if we make Flex Fridays, they'll hate us. Flex Fridays, if I didn't explain, is where every Friday you don't have to come to work. You can work from home, or you can come in, but if you have a meeting, you're an adult, so you're responsible. You will come in and do whatever. And then for the admin, me and my team member, we tag teams, so there was always someone at the desk in case we had a visitor or things needed to get done.
Okay, so the Culture Club, in your experience, had the real ability to not only do some fun stuff within the office, but also make some changes that impacted people.
Well, when we asked why and they told us why, we went around to all the managers, because every department was aware of the Culture Club, because every department takes part in the Culture Club, you see. So we're accepted in all the silos, whatever they are, whatever the case. And we talked to each manager individually. Hey, let's try this out, blah, blah, blah. The ones that resisted, we worked harder on. Finally, once we got consensus, then we took that back to the owners, and we said, everyone says it's a good idea, let's try it. And they agreed, and it was fantastic. Everyone loved it.
And then ultimately it got implemented, and big win, right? Bam.
I don't know if they kept it on or not. It's been a long time since I've been there, but I'd have to check.
My hunch is they're still doing it. Okay, so it's not rolled out yet. It's not ready, but the intention with the Global Company Culture Association is that when companies join, they have access to, they'll get the book that you're writing, they'll get some directions and forms and stuff that will help them form their own club,
right?
Including kind of a peek maybe at a handbook and how to develop. That was another thing that the club did, right? Was develop this. I think it's amazing because it's fun and it's visual and it's light. It was a company handbook, but it wasn't the stale old kind that people hate to read. And even something like that tells somebody when they first come to work there, oh, this is a cool company, okay?
Right.
And it addressed rules and different things, but it didn't do it in a thou shalt not,
See, that's usually HR's approach. They're legally bound to give you that whole sheet of do's and don'ts, right? But you also need to have a cool book that tells this poor person. I worked at a company once where the sales girl was hired, and that was a busy day that she started, and everyone's running around, and they gave her desk, and they gave her computer, and they gave her password, but she doesn't know anything about the culture, so she stared at a blank screen all day. If she'd known about the culture, if you don't have anything to do and no one's giving you instruction, you don't know what to do, you can online browse, you shop, whatever you want to do.
Right.
Google something.
She was scared to do that because somebody's going to come by and see that,
she wasn't working. Yeah, but the poor girl stared at the screen for 4 hours. She just sat there. I felt so terrible for her.
That's called fear.
Yep.
Okay, so coming soon.
Right.
If people are interested in it, they should check out the Global Company Culture Association. And I'm really excited about your first book being in print, which is not going to be your most prolific book, by the way, but we won't talk about that. Your New York Times bestseller that you're working on.
I don't know about
currently,
that.
Yeah, trust me. I'm an author. I know the way this stuff goes. So they can reach the association at globalcompanycultureassociation.com. Mm-hmm. We've got lots of people coming along and joining and participating. We want to add you to the group. So come join, be a member.
Yep.
And there's a great likelihood that you're going to receive enough ideas that is going to really profoundly impact the way you do your culture. So,
amen.
Hey, Company Culture Podcast, we are driving through the association, through the podcast and evolution at work. And we'd love for you to come step in, be a part. Don't sit on the sidelines. Come participate. And together, let's make the world of work a better place.
Let's make your culture great.